let's take a look at Ohio State versus Indiana this weekend. It is the biggest game on the schedule. It is a top 5 matchup that we could not have anticipated at the beginning of this year. Ohio State being ranked among the top 2 teams in college football, yeah, we probably could have anticipated that. But Indiana being ranked at number 5 going into a bye week and being 10-0, no, we could not have predicted that with a straight face. For starters, Indiana has never started 10-0 until this year. As a matter of fact, Indiana had never won 10 games until this year, and they had only won 9 games 3 times. None of those times have been recent, right? If you need another reminder of just how long it's been since Indiana was worth a damn, you got to take it back to 1967. A lot of things have been changing since then. But also, Ohio State has won 28 straight against Indiana, and this is going to be what they think is number 29. But this Indiana team is not unlike any other Indiana team that Ohio State, or anybody else for that matter, has ever faced. And that's why we're in this spot with huge stakes, right? Ohio State needs to win this game to get into the Big Ten championship and to really put itself into the college football playoff. Because if Indiana were to win this game, they move to 11-0, and then they'll beat Purdue like they stole something, and be 12-0 going into the Big Ten championship game against Oregon, who's got the head-to-head against Ohio State, but that's moot with Ohio State already having the one loss. You need the head-to-head win against Indiana to get this thing done and to achieve one of your goals, right? One of your goals is to win the Big Ten championship, and you can't do that if you don't qualify. I know that they have Michigan on November 30th, and that is also one of your goals this season, and then there's the national championship, but there is no getting around it. This team, this roster, this coaching staff was put together with one goal in mind: win the national championship right here, right now. And aside from Oregon, Indiana is the best challenge that Ohio State is going to face all year. And frankly, Ohio State is the challenge that Indiana has wanted all year. Let's start with this. Will Howard has been serviceable, good to bordering on great, but mostly just good. 2,400 yards passing, right? Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins have lived up to billing. Between them, about 1,350 rush yards, averaging between 5 and 6 yards per carry. Pretty good. Jeremiah Smith has been everything that we thought he would be. He is tied for catches at Ohio State with 49, but it is not close in as far as his production, right? Emeka Ibuka, who is the best wide receiver not named Jeremiah Smith on that team, has 612 receiving yards, while Jeremiah Smith has 865, along with 9 receiving touchdowns. Again, true freshman, outstanding player, is the best player at Ohio State as a true freshman. Wild to think about, but true. And a lot of that has to do with how meh the Ohio State defense has seen from a individual standpoint, because what that defense has done really well is keep the lid on, right? They aren't allowing teams to score on them at will. As a matter of fact, since giving up 32 points in their only loss this year, they gave up 27 over the last 4 games, right? Like, they have been able to keep people out of the end zone. But if you look at their statistics, there isn't one player or even 2 players that stand out as guys that are making it go. If you're watching the game on the field, you see that Cody Simons is everywhere. You see that Caleb Downs is a goddamn pterodactyl who can go sideline to sideline like a pterodactyl and is erasing what would otherwise be big plays. You're also seeing JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer are keeping contained. But because of all this, Sonny Styles leads the team in tackles with just 63 and leads the team in sacks with 4. Having your linebacker lead your team in sacks is not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't say great things about your defensive line, right? You really need those guys to come on in a very real way. But more importantly, you need Denzel Burke to play like it's 2023. I don't mind telling you, that man has been getting cooked. That man has been barbecue chicken for everybody that Ohio State has played since Oregon. It's getting out of hand here. Now, he and Davison Igbinosun, they both got 2 interceptions. They're tied for the lead, but that's 2, right? Yeah, we're expecting that to be a few more. Have they had some injuries that set them back? Yes, right? particularly on the offensive line. You lose your starting left tackle. You're sliding Donovan Jackson over to play left tackle, who's an All-American guard. So you're essentially playing with 3 guards on the left side of the line of scrimmage. And you know what? They have filled the gap. But that's also what you're expected to do at Ohio State. That's what the depth at Ohio State is supposed to provide. You're supposed to be the guy that can slide over and fill that spot. However, being able to do that against Nebraska, being able to do that against Northwestern, is not the same as being able to do that against this Indiana team. So let me tell you a little bit about this Indiana team. I have a piece coming out later this week at foxsports.com where I got to talk with Curt Cignetti one-on-one about just how he was able to do this and do this so quickly. And one of the things that he was really good about is hitting on guys in the transfer portal, particularly guys that aren't necessarily named but have produced, right? So Elijah Surratt, who came with him from James Madison, leads the team in receiving yards and catches. 38 catches for just over 650 yards, right? That's pretty good. But Curtis Rourke, who's a 4-year starter at Ohio, he's thrown for 2,100 yards and 21 TDs with just 4 interceptions. So he's not turning the ball over. And then I think the guys that don't get enough run here are Indiana's tailbacks, especially for what they did against Tony White and that Nebraska defense. Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton each have combined to help them rush for over 1,200 yards or nearly 1,200 yards with 18 rushing TDs. They run the ball really, really well. That offensive line does a great job of protecting Curtis Rourke. He does a great job of getting the ball out on time, and they're able to gash people enough to where those running backs can get to the second level and make things happen. And then on the outside, it's not just Elijah Surratt. It's also Omar Cooper Jr., who can take the top off your defense, right? One of the things that Curtis Rourke and those 2 wide receivers have been really good at is back shoulder fades. I think a back shoulder fade thrown well is an indefensible pass. I don't think you can stop it. I think if it is thrown perfectly, it's like a good pitcher having his stuff. Good pitching will always beat good hitting is the adage, because it's true. If a pitcher's hitting their spots, you're done. You're just you're up there guessing. And even if you're not guessing, if he's hitting the spots and you can't hit it, that's what it is. I think Curtis Rourke can do that with Omar Cooper and with Elijah Surratt. But defensively is where they really begin to shine, right? They have a couple of dudes that ought to be drafted and we should be talking more about for individual awards, starting with Michael Kamara, who's got 9.5 sacks, 15 for loss, and 2 forced fumbles on that defensive line. Amari Farrell's got 4 interceptions, doubling up the let's not be coy about it, highly priced Denzel Burke at Ohio State when we're talking about production here. We're also looking at a linebacker crew that has been really, really great. I'm looking at, Sonny Styles got 63 tackles to lead Ohio State, as I mentioned earlier. But the thing that I think bothers me the most is that Aiden Fisher's got 98 tackles at Indiana. You know, I would expect Cody Simon to be up there, or someone like Cody Simon, say nothing of wherever the hell CJ Hicks has been. They just haven't had the stars that Indiana has seemed to be able to put out in Bloomington this year. Like, you look at these individual productions, you would expect those guys to have those numbers to be at Ohio State, not those numbers to be at Indiana. But, again, landscape. Win the football game, right? There's a reason why we give Ohio State the benefit of the doubt. There's a reason why we give Penn State, if you're the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, the benefit of the doubt as a one-loss team, right? They still think that's one of the 4 best teams in college football, even as Indiana is 10-0. And it's because Indiana hasn't played anybody that we think is worth a damn, even as they've been beating the hell out of everybody they play. So aside from Michigan, they've beaten everybody they've played by 14 points or more. But more than that, they haven't allowed anybody to score more than 28 on them. Now, they also get to couple that with the number 2 scoring offense in the country. So you have the number 2 scoring offense in the country, a damn good defense, but also Ohio State's got the number 2 scoring defense in the country, which, again, forget the production, you just don't score on them. That's just not what's going to happen. That's how Jim Knowles has built the defense. It feels as if they're just suffocating you, and you can't get into the end zone the closer you try to get. So from a Styles making fights point of view, I love this. Again, number 2 scoring offense versus number 2 scoring defense for an opportunity to play in what we think is going to be the Big Ten championship game between the 2 of them. But it also is a chance for Indiana to make us all look very stupid. And by all of us being very stupid, I mean those of us that don't rank Ohio State or don't rank Indiana at number 2 right now, behind Oregon. And I'll tell you why. There are 3 teams that are left in college football who are undefeated: Army, Indiana, and Oregon. We all make Oregon the number one team in the country, not just because they are 11-0, but because they beat Ohio State at Autzen, okay? We make Ohio State number 2 because we believe that 1 point loss is indicative of a national championship caliber team, and we think that those 2 teams playing for the national championship or in the playoff at any point is a fair fight. We can't read this Indiana team because it is unprecedented, right? However, if you're just going who won the games and who lost the games and what your competition looks like, they play a Big Ten schedule. They've played a Big Ten schedule. They have been beating Big Ten opponents. It's not as if Army is playing the same kind of schedule, right? Oregon is basically playing the same schedule that Indiana is playing, okay? Nebraska was 5-1 when Indiana put their hooks into them, and now they suck, and we want to act as if Nebraska's always sucked, when really they didn't suck until Indiana put 56 on their skull and didn't allow them to score more than 7. Okay. If Indiana is able to beat Ohio State, not only does this committee look stupid because they've got 1-loss Penn State ahead of Indiana, so they're ranking Penn State's loss to Ohio State higher than they're ranking Indiana's 10-0 start, which is asinine and ridiculous. But also Texas in there, who's got the 1 loss against Georgia. They think that they're a better football team than them. And on it goes to Ohio State. So you got 3 teams with 1 loss that are all ranked ahead in many respects of Indiana. And yet and still, Indiana's going, what else we got to do? Well, this is your opportunity. I don't think that anybody will deny that Indiana is one of the 2 best teams in college football if they're able to pull off this upset on the road at the shoe against a team that we all know is good, because that's what we're looking for. Beat somebody that we are confident is good. And it doesn't matter. If you beat them by 1, if you beat them by 50, beat them by 50, you might be the number 1 team in the country. But you beat them by 1, we're going to make you the number 2. I'm going to make you the number 2 team in the country. How about that? I will do that. And as much as I am really fascinated and having fun with this Indiana story and seeing them come out of nowhere, literally, like Randy Orton with an RKO, to really have an imprint on this playoff. The other thing that I want to point out to you is that Indiana sent out like pressers last week going, hey, Hoosiers fans, here's how you can buy tickets to the first round of the college football playoff, which is a surreal moment for college football fans everywhere, right? Indiana's a basketball school. They're like, we play football now, too. Us in Kansas, we play football, too. You know what I'm saying? Like, they in here now. They saying, we got this in Bloomington, right? And you know what Curt Cignetti means to them up there. But this is where either the dream continues or the dream comes to a screeching halt in as far as what your expectations can be. Because I will tell you, you beat Ohio State. National championship is what people are going to be talking about for the next month. That's just what it is. Because if you beat that team, we know that you have beaten one of the 2 best teams in football. And a team that pushed Oregon into the deep water, which means that we think you have an opportunity to beat Oregon on a neutral site for the Big Ten championship. And you win that game, you're the 1 seed. You're the 1 seed. And then we got to talk about Indiana being 3 games to win the national championship. All in year 1 of Curt Cignetti. No wonder they extended this man into the 2030s. Because that's what you do when you have this kind of a change agent. You have this kind of a guy who's done this everywhere else he's been. He's done this at Elon. He did this at James Madison. He did this at IUP. Like, he's that guy. And that was one of the cool things I got to talk to him about it on this journey. He said he was talking to his wife and they get on the plane. He's like, I've done this before. I can do this again. And I'm like, at Indiana? He's like, yeah, why not? Why not at Indiana? And now if you're Nebraska, you're looking at Curt Cignetti going, oh my God, how did we not go get this guy when he was still at James Madison? Why didn't we do this now? And us buyers remorse or Matt Rule following the loss to USC say nothing of, just this barrier that is 9 games of being this close, 1 win away from bowl eligibility, not being able to do that. I think with Indiana, also the thing is, if you lose this game by 1 score, you can still make the college football playoff, and probably will, right? You lose this game by 1 score, you beat Purdue like they stole something, you give people something to argue about. Would you put a 1-loss Indiana in over a 2-loss Alabama or 2-loss Georgia or 2-loss Ole Miss or even a 1-loss Penn State? What would you want to do with that? Because I think this committee is setting themselves up to say, okay, when Indiana loses, we get to put Penn State in this thing. And I'm going, please don't. Please put the fun football team back in, because that's also what Indiana is. It's fun. They got a head coach that likes to talk noise, will step out on a limb. They have an offense that will go score on people, and they got a defense that will stop people to take the ball away. this game is as much about winning and losing as it is about, is it pleasing to watch? And yeah, there's something pleasing to watch about 7 to 6 games, but not for Penn State, and not for any reason other than that. Like, they're just not a fun football team to watch. That said, if they get in the playoff, mazel tov. Go ham. The other thing that I would point out about Penn State is if you have a top 5 ranking, they're probably going to lose. Like, they apparently just can't beat anybody that's ranked inside the top 5. So why would you put them in a playoff where they would absolutely have to play somebody in the top 5 by the second round? I know, it feels as if I'm dunking on Penn State, and that's because I am, because I expect y'all to keep getting good, and y'all keep letting me down when you got to go beat teams like Michigan or Ohio State when they're good. If Indiana can do this before y'all can, you will not be able to live it down. And you know what? There will be a whole bunch of us here on the #1 college football show with over 117,000 subscribers that you should join. Hit the subscribe button, talking about you everywhere you go going into this offseason. Either way, I'm excited about Ohio State, Indiana, and I hope you are too. We'll talk about it, my goodness, ad nauseum.